Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mild Mannered EDC, and today we're going to do a review of a knife that I really enjoy having in my collection, and I'm a big fan of this company in particular, and that is the Monterey Bay Knives EWC. There you go. Look at this thing. Beautiful knife. Just a beautiful knife. Like I said, one of my favorites, and Monterey Bay puts out some great stuff. So, with that, well, so who's Monterey Bay? So Monterey Bay is a knife company down in Monterey Bay, California, and it is a collaboration between primarily, well, Ray Laconico. There you go. Great knife designer, famous, the Keen, the Kaiser Gemini, the list goes on and on and on. Ursa Minor, obviously, the Easy C, which is another, in fact, this is modeled after the Easy C. It just has a different action and function. But yeah, the XLC, which is their newest integral model, the list could go on with all of Ray's design. Most recently, he designed the Centauri, I believe it's pronounced, from Artisan Cutlery. Interesting looking knife. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff from Ray Laconico. So it's he and a man who runs Carmel Cutlery down in Carmel by the Sea, and that is Sanford Owen. And Sanford's great. So Sanford's usually probably who you're running into if you're on Instagram, following them on Instagram and chatting with them on Instagram or any of that sort of thing. So, I had a chance to meet him. The family was camping. We went camping down the West Coast not too long ago. As you know, we're here in Washington State, so we went down to California. In fact, Monterey was about as far south as we went, but we had a chance to go over there, and I was able to wander into Carmel Cutlery down there and chat with him for a while, and he was great. He spent a lot of time with me. We chatted. Just a cool dude. Really cool dude. So anyways, I'm not going to, hopefully won't let... as Nick Shabazz would say, I hope I don't let too much of that influence my review, but, this is just a phenomenal knife, and whether I, had any interaction with him or not, I think I would feel the same way. So without much else, let's go ahead and get underway with this. We're going to do a classic mild-mannered review today, and when we do a classic review, we'll talk blade, we'll talk action, we'll talk handles, scales and hardware, and then ergos and carry. Let's go ahead and start with a quick spec check, get that out of the way. We have a blade here of 3 inches on this Monterey Bay Knives EWC, and that EWC, by the way, stands for Everywhere Carry, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about action. So, blade, 3 inches, blade thickness, 0.125 inches. We've got a handle length on this little guy of 3.75 inches, and a handle thickness of 0.31 inches. And that gives us an overall, tip to tail, of 6.75 inches, so not a very big knife at all. Very reasonable. I'd say it's on the medium, smaller side of medium. It does have a 3-inch blade, which is perfectly fine. And a very light, 2.1 ounces. So yeah, really, really lightweight, and that's cool for a lot of reasons. Again, we'll talk about that more in carry. So let's maybe do a couple size comparisons. So there is the EWC, and here is a Civivi Elementum. So you can see that it's a tad smaller than the Civivi Elementum. How about what looks like it could be, its family member at some level, the Spyderco Para. And then how about a classic, there you go, Victorinox Swiss Army knife. So there you go. Gives you a sense of what we're kind of talking about here with these knives, with this particular knife. Very, very reasonable in size, and that's great for a lot of reasons. So let's go ahead and get underway with this review. So blade. Let's talk blade. This has a phenomenal blade. Super, super slicey. Very, very sharp. Just very attractive. And I've said before, you can see in my collection, this type of blade, these are just the kind of blades that I like. I just like a classic drop point or clip point type blade. Yeah, just about stabbed myself there because I'm not paying attention.
And with that in mind, Ron, are you paying attention?
Nope.
Obviously. Sorry about that. So, yeah, classic, good looking blade. It is a drop point. It's got this satin finish on it. Now, it's a very well done satin finish, although I'll say the thing with satin finishes, and some are worse than others, and I don't know why, And this one's more along those lines. And you can see there's some really good reflectivity there, but it definitely smudges up and stuff like that quite a bit. I don't know what the deal is with that. I mean, it just is by the nature of doing a satin finish there. But yeah, I mean, it smudges and you kind of just have to get used to that. It is a really aggressive flat grind. I mean, this comes down to a crazy thin edge, extremely slicey. They just did a fantastic job there. And blade steel. Let's talk blade steel. It is not marked on the blades. In fact, on the blade. In fact, I don't know if any of their knives have steel markings, but this particular, and that doesn't really bother me. I think I mean, some people I know really want that for resale or some other things, but whatever. I trust their website. I have no reason to believe otherwise. And they indicate that this is an M390 blade. So there you go. M390, one of the best steels around out there for everyday carry. Hard to argue with that. Now, as you can see, as I mentioned, markings, not really. They've got their cool logo, MBK, and then you've got the Ray Laconico signature here on the top of the blade, which he does doing more and more on his knives, which I think is very cool. It's great. It's very attractive, too. And grind, as I mentioned with the grind, very even grind on both sides, and they did a great job with the sharpening choil. It's away from the plunge line, very even. Yeah, it's just done really, really well. So a lot to like about this blade. In fact, there's very little I don't think there's anything I don't like about this blade. It's just a great blade, except maybe the smudginess but I mean, that's the nature of the steel. I don't know if I can necessarily blame the knife for that. Anyway, blame me. Maybe wash my hands more or something. Not that although, could we be washing our hands more? My gosh, my hands, I've just been washing my hands insane amount of time. It's like, I'm surprised the skin is still, anyways, I'm off on a tangent there. For those of you watching, if you watch into the future, this is being filmed during the COVID-19 coronavirus thing, and everybody's washing their hands like crazy. So there you go. Let's talk action. So mentioned this is called the Everywhere Carry, and the reason this is called the Everywhere Carry is because you can basically carry this everywhere, meaning it has got a slip joint type action on it. Granted, it's a flipper, but it's not locking. And it's 3 inches. I mean, so basically this knife is designed to get around to make sure that you're legal in as many places as possible. And yeah, I mean, the blade is definitely 3 inches. It's kind of uncontroversial there. And like I said, the action is definitely slip joint. Now it has this cool sort of back flipper kind of a thing. It's not a traditional flipper in the same way that this is. It doesn't have a flipper tab. It's more like a front flipper kind of turned around. And that's sort of what we got here. So yeah, I mean, it's got this incredibly fun action on it, right? I mean, this is what's so cool about this knife is this ridiculously interesting action. In fact, I don't think there's any knife really else out there on the market doing that. At least none that I've handled or that I'm aware of. I'm sure there may be one, but as far as I'm aware, that this is it, and it is really cool. Now, it did take me a little bit to get used to this. You have to kind of find the sweet spot in your hand to make it do this. But I mean, you could just see the fidget factor on this thing. Now, the way it's doing that is it's got a detent, right? Like any normal knife, it's got a detent ball here you can see that as it comes down, it'll click. There you go. So, you're not shaking this knife out at all. It's got a very, very good detent. And then as you open it, and I'll show you, as you're opening it up, you'll hear it. There you go. And it clicks into another detent. So, it's in many ways extremely simple, but also ingenious.
Pure genius.
At the same time, it's just really, really cool. It's not the strongest lockup necessarily. I mean, it's not locking, right? I mean, it's a slip joint for all intent and purpose, right? But is it the strongest detent kind of in there? Not necessarily, but I've not had any problems with it. I mean, when you're using it, when you're using the knife, it's pushing back. Your thumb naturally kind of falls here, and your finger in here. So you're in essence just holding it is kind of keeping it open, just through kind of everyday use. So yeah, I mean, from all practical purposes, it's a very, very good mechanism, and one that's, I think, quite safe and super fun. Super, super fun. Now, this came out of the box a little, very loose. And I did talk to Sanford about that briefly, and he was like, shoot, I think I, forgot to Loctite that one. And I was like, no worries. I had actually already thrown a little blue Loctite on there. And ever since then, it has been dead on centered. It has not wiggled in the slightest with blade play or, obviously blade rock. But no, it doesn't have blade rock. It's a slip joint, but no blade play. Even with all the fidgeting that I've done on that, a little bit of blue Loctite. And gosh, can you see that? How cool is that, right? You can just do that all day long. So yeah, a little bit of blue Loctite, and this thing was good to go. So there you go. Great action, phenomenal design. It's one of those things that it just definitely makes this knife. This is why this knife is so fun and unique, is that cool action. And the fact that it can be carried everywhere. I work in and around a lot of government buildings, and oftentimes I'm in a suit or a little more dressed up. And this is really, if there's a future video on my recommended best office knives, this is definitely one that I carry a lot. Not only because it's so light, but it's also pretty classy looking. But it's just, I know it's legal. Certainly everywhere here in Washington State, but just generally. So it's fallen under a lot of those laws. So it's cool. So there you go. So let's talk handles and scales and hardware. So it's got this beautiful carbon fiber, right? And this thing is modeled after the EZC. And I used to have an EZC, and I've recently parted with it. I was a little hesitant to do so. I had spoken with a viewer, and we chatted a bit, and he really was interested. And so I decided to let it go. And the reason I decided to let it go was, one, he seemed like a decent guy and just was really interested in the knife. And, that's part of how all this is. But also, I'm really looking for their EZC 2.0, which I know is coming out soon. I know it's not this knife, but it's another knife, and I want to mention it. And it is kind of related to this knife. So I'm looking forward to saving up. I wanted to put a little money aside to save up for that particular knife, and I'm stoked for it. And yeah, so this is modeled after that EZC, and I'll put a picture up there since I don't actually have the actual knife anymore. With that groove down the center, and just, yeah, it's just all in the same kind of blade length, shape, et cetera, et cetera. It's just this one has a different mechanism. But back to the scales. So this is carbon fiber, beautifully done, no voids. It's just, you can see that. It's just lovely. It's lovely, lovely. And I'm sure, it's obviously plays no small part in its weight. But interestingly, as you can see, if I can turn on my flashlight here, you can see in there, you'll notice that it's lined. It's got nested liners. So that's at least on one side. And that's partly how they make all this work. But yeah, there you can see that pretty well. So it's got these nested liners. So, and you can see it on the back as well. So it's kind of interesting. But no, yeah, they just did a really, really nice job. Whoever's making these for them over in China, and this knife is made in China, by the way. Whoever's making them, whoever their OEM is over there is doing a really fantastic job. So beautiful, beautiful handle, beautiful scales, just a lovely knife from that standpoint, from an aesthetics standpoint. And that silver and black is just cool, man.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's just cool. So, all right, hardware. Yeah, it's got, kind of standard pivots, screw, etc. A couple of screws here. Got some really good looking standoffs in the back for, back spacing purposes. And then it's got this very, very nice, in fact, I love this clip. It's not deep carry. Would I have liked it to be deep carry? Maybe. And I'll show you. It doesn't, and again, this should be in a different part of this video, but since we're here talking about it, let's just do it. Is it deep carry? No. But that's okay, because it's pretty classy, this little part of it that's sticking up. But dang, this is good. Look how thin that's milled up at top. It's super springy. It's titanium. On this carbon fiber, it just slides right into your pocket. So there you go. I'll try to not repeat all that when we get to the carry conversation, but there you go. Yeah. So since we're talking hardware, this is a great clip. It's a fantastic clip. I really like it. I hope they continue to use it on their other models. So there you go. That's scales and hardware. Now let's talk ergos and carry. So ergos, right? I mean, it's kind of a stick, right? I mean, it's just essentially a fairly square knife, and in a lot of ways, it's with rounded edges and whatnot. In a lot of ways, it's what you would come to expect from a Ray Laconico. I mean, it just feels good in your hand. It's not a lot to complain about here with this knife. I mean, you can hold it a lot of different ways. Pocket clip, I could see, there might be a slight hot spot for some people with that. It fits my hand pretty well. I mean, I maybe feel a little bit of this right here. I don't feel anything back there, interestingly. But yeah, I mean, from a ergo standpoint, I think this is a pretty darn great knife. And like I said, yeah. So very little to complain there on the ergos. Lots to like. Carry. Mentioned, I'm not going to repeat what I already told you on carry as it relates to the clip, but man, it sits right there in the pocket. No worries about it whatsoever. I think it carries beautifully, and particularly it's so darn lightweight. Sometimes I forget it's even in the pocket. So yeah, I mean, it's a great knife from a carry standpoint as well. So there you go. There we go. We've talked through our categories here. What are some of my kind of final thoughts on this? Well, on one end, it's just a really unique knife and a really cool knife and a really fun knife from a company that's really putting out some it's not only interesting knives and different knives. They don't all look like knives we've seen 100 million times, but also they're just really well done. The quality is there. The prices, this particular knife was $180. Do I think it's worth $180? Yeah, I think I do. I think for the mechanism, for the materials, for the design, the fact that it's from a smaller company, it's not from a giant, Spyderco or Kershaw or, whatever. I really do. I think the quality, the uniqueness, the precision in which it was done warrants a price like that. So it is, it's a little on the higher end for a smaller knife, but I think it's warranted in my humble opinion. So it's great. Now, availability is limited on these. That's one thing we do need to talk about. And in fact, I reached out to Sanford prior to this video just to ask him sort of what's the plan here. I know they've got another batch coming in. And basically his response to me was, we're not looking to discontinue the EWC. We'll continue to order batches of it, assuming there's interest. So as long as people are wanting to buy it, and asking for it, they'll continue to make them. I mean, like I said, they're a smaller company, so they can't, make 10,000 of these and just have them lying around. They need to turn that around. So I thought that was a very fair answer. If people are buying them, they'll keep making them. So it's definitely not something they're looking to just, can the design here and, move on to something else. So they're there. They're going to, hopefully there's a new batch coming in, I think, sooner than later. So if this is something you're interested in, I'd keep an eye on their website, sign up for their email, so you can get the details. But yeah, I mean, a lot to like here. If people keep liking them, they're going to keep making them. And I think if you're looking for a knife that's going to be legal in a lot of places, has a fidget factor off the charts, and is just unique and different and beautifully made with beautiful materials, and for under $200, M390, I mean, all that good stuff, carbon fiber, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is definitely a winner and a knife that I love. I enjoy having it in my collection, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to see what MBK is up to and what they've got up their sleeve and kind of what's coming down the line. So with that, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're liking these reviews or anything that I'm putting out here on the channel, give it a like. I really appreciate that. Obviously, consider subscribing if it's something you want to do. Obviously, appreciate that too. I don't usually plug that, but a couple times I've done that, so I'm just going to do it, and then I did it here. So there you go. But yeah, more important than any of that, though, and even more important than this knife, stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to each other, and all the best.